Sakuems, welcome back to my channel. So if you're new here, hello, my name is Emily and I'm a French artist and YouTuber. In this week's video, I'm going to do a Copic marker challenge. So this is from the Copic Color type of challenge hosted by Copic marker itself. So basically in January they released some sort of January color theme, and I really wanted to take part into this, but I missed one color, and in February I also missed one color. So I was waiting for March to come up and I finally can do it because I have all the colors. So the theme of the month is greens. Actually, this is not a color that I use a lot in my artwork, so this is going to be quite challenging. But yeah, we'll see how this goes. So I have my free markers here and I also have the colorless blender, and we're just gonna jump into it. But before I do that, I just wanted to quickly mention that I have now available in my Etsy store buttons or badges, I don't know how you want to call it, but those are the sets that I have currently. I have two sets with my fantasy romantic artwork, and this is quite special because this is like a cute bubbly type of artwork. There's a lot of like my manga and chibi stuff that I used to do a couple years ago. If you want to check this out, I don't have a lot in stock, so if you want to get yours, then it's better to take it now. So now let's just jump into the coloring and see if I can actually pull this off with just free markers and greens, which I basically never use. I hope you will enjoy, and if you do, then don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Let's go!
So the first thing that I did, which I didn't record it, was spend basically 2 hours thinking about my idea, because of the colors themselves. I don't really use a lot of greens in my artworks, and so I didn't really have any sketch prepared that was nature or plant-based, because I really wanted to do justice to the colors and do actually stuff that was supposed to be green. Although, I mean, you can take it both ways. You can do whatever artwork you want and just use greens to color it, or you can do an artwork based on the colors. And because I didn't have my sketch planned before, I just actually did the sketch and my concept art based on the colors. So I just had in mind to do some sort of nymph or like weird elfy like creatures, like sort of spirit from the forest with plants and flowers around her. And I had a bit of an inspiration from different artists on Instagram, and I mixed everything, and so in the end it really doesn't look like any of the artists or any of the art from those artists. I just scrambled my Instagram and I went into like lowish artwork. I also I think I searched like for Audrey Kawasaki. I think that's basically it. And just the way I do faces, and I did my sketch and I went on Photoshop and I just tweaked it a little bit and I printed out, and I actually inked, almost like say inking, but I basically did a clean sketch with my Color Race Indigo pencil, because I didn't want to use graphite and I didn't want to use black directly, and I especially didn't want to have a black liner because I really like the softer look. So that was my what you basically can't see in the video because I did it off camera. And then I jumped into the coloring. So I've used 4 markers. Basically, I've used the Copic Color from the March challenge. That was YG23, YG, I think it's 17, and the last one is G17. And so it was a little bit of a tricky game at first, because I did had to use a lot of the blender to grab the colors from my lighter shade and smudge everything and do a very wet technique, basically trying my best to smear and smudge the colorless ink and get a lighter green. That was one of the struggle, I believe, from this specific color selection. Compared to like the previous month, because in the first month there was like a very pale blue, and last month there's also one of the color that was a little bit lighter, but it was still a struggle. And so for this month of color, I believe that the YG23 is actually way too dark for most things that I wanted to color, and I really like the pastel look of markers, and so it was a bit of a tricky game at first, especially for the skin and the hair, because I really wanted to have a contrast within the different shapes. Because I'm only using 3 colors, I basically knew that I had to have some sort of lighter areas, then mid-tone with my basic greens, and then some leaves and graphic details with the darker shade I could have. And I also figured that I could maybe detail it more and darken a bit more with a black pencil in the end. So that was my go-to thinking. I didn't really like thought through exactly what colors and where I should put them. The basic ways of working with just 3 colors, if are in the same family, is to make sure you do a like wet to wet technique. So that means your paper isn't dry when you are applying colors. So I did use a lot of ink. And another tip I can give for anyone who's basically trying to work with like a few markers, you don't have a lot, they're quite expensive, so I understand that you want to try to spare them also, but also like when you have less marker, you have to find some tricks. And so the nib to nib technique is one way, which is what I use a lot. I was basically just thinking, okay, like this area is supposed to be a lighter shade, so I'm only going to use my blender, the Copic Colors blender, and YG23, and then I can just nib to nib and gradually shade that, and then I can come with like a little bit of my darker shade just in certain areas to pop up the contrast. And I did that everywhere basically. So once I got the hang of it, you know, how I was able to mix the colors and switching between the 2 or the 3 colors, ultimately I ended up with all my markers in one hand with the cap off, and I was just switching between because I had to work quite fast. The coloring alone, I thought it would be faster, but it didn't took that long. I spent less than 2 hours on the coloring because I had to work really fast. So that was really fun and a little bit challenging for the lighter shade. But then I had enjoyed working a lot with like this darker green, which I don't really use actually. Like I said, I'm really new to greens, and it was actually very pretty colors. I should definitely use that more. But yeah, so one thing that I noticed that was a little bit of a bother is that basically the mid-tone, the YG17, wasn't that mid-tone like. It was very close to the YG23, so I didn't really use it that much. I was able to blend the YG23 with my G17, so my basically the light shade and the dark shade, they were working together. So I'm not sure who picked the colors of this month, but I think it would have been a lot more fun and I guess interesting to have a lighter shade than YG23. So basically lighter shade. Maybe like one sort of like maybe YG06 or a G40 or something like that. Just a bit lighter than the YG23, because I will have more room to play with my light, my mid-tones and the dark tones. Or another way would have to maybe pick another greens, but in the dark green section, there's not a lot of options. This is already a quite dark green. Anyways, yeah, I covered basically what I had to say about how I color. It was a lot of fun. I actually really enjoyed that. Once I got into it and I was able to do my gradients and do like a wash of color, and in other places I will just do my feathering techniques, and in other places I will just like do blobs of color. And one thing I also noticed is on the skin, it was easier for me to do a light wash of my YG23 and then pick my blender and really soaking in the colorless blender to move the colors and do this highlight glowy, like very blurry effect. That was easier than having to do nib to nib, especially on the shoulders and like the broad areas and everything. On the face, it was better for me to just do nib to nib, but I after a while the tip was kind of stained, and it did a little bit of like specks of colors where I didn't want to have specks of colors, so I had to really use a lot of the colorless ink to dilute that and smudge everything. But in the end it turned out okay. You don't have to like freak out about the texture. It's meant to be like that. Sometimes I just feel like I tend to overly blend colors. It's okay if it's a little bit more dense in areas, or if it's a little bit more precise, or if it's just blurry, or if it's very texturized. It's fine. To me, it looks nice. So, last thing that I did, basically the G17 wasn't that dark. I wanted to just use my color erase pencil, but the blue didn't really show off. So I used the black pencil. This is my polychromo black pencil because I can get very tiny details and I can smudge it a tiny bit on my darkest spot. But I didn't want to actually shade with the pencil. I feel like it's a little bit tough, like cheat. I didn't want to cheat and like do a bunch of like smearing and smudging with like blues and blacks. No, I did it very sparingly. Just in very specific parts, just to, you know, make it pop, and like on the eyes. But I think also what I kind of regret is that I outline the inner eyes. So the what is it called? Basically your eye color. I should have kept it very green-like and not just outline with black. It still looks nice, but yeah, I will think about that in the future to just keep it a little bit more colorful and not always have a black outline in the eyes. For the eyelashes, it's working well, but for the actual eyes inside, I don't know. I feel like it gives a very ethereal look without the blacks. So yeah, I'll keep that in mind, but it still looks, you know, I'm quite happy with the results. I actually really like how it turned out. I'm definitely going to do more Copic color artwork if I have the colors for the challenge, but even that, without the challenge itself, really want to do more Copic art. And I also really want to have more like a limited palette and have fun with color combination that I don't really use as much. And yeah, so we'll see about that. Stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more Copic artwork, because I will definitely post more. This is very fun to do. This is also quite easy for me to do because it doesn't take 3 days to make a video. So yeah, really like that. Last thing I did on the piece was to use my white Jelly Roll pen to do highlights, especially just to help framing the face with the hair strands, because it's hard to keep the whites because the Copic tip isn't that fine. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky, but yeah, it turned out quite nice, so I'm really happy with that. Hope you like also the artwork. If you do, then don't forget to comment and tell me what is your favorite part about Copic marker, and like, do you want to try this challenge too? Because I think it's really fun, and you don't have to follow like the exact colors. You can just decide to do a challenge with just greens. That's also quite fun. So yeah, if you are interested, this piece is available on my Etsy store. I will have the original link below and also some prints. And yeah, and I think that's basically it. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. Hope you'll enjoy the video, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye, guys.